यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन यमुनतीरा वनचारि यमुनतीरा वनचारि जय राधा माधव कुञ्ज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुञ्ज बिहारी जय गोपीजन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी जय गोपीजन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन यमुनतीरा वनचारि यमुनतीरा वनचारि जय राधा माधव कुञ्ज बिहारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा श्रील प्रभुपदा जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परमहंस स्तोत्र सदस्य श्रीमती स्वामी वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। इस्कॉन संस्थापकाचार्य श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परमहंस स्तोत्र सदस्य श्रीमती स्वामी भक्ति सिद्धांत शास्त्री महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय। जय विष्णुपाद श्रील किशोरदास महाराज की जय। जय विष्णुपाद सच्चिदानंद श्रील भक्तिविनोद ठाकुर की जय। जय विष्णुपाद वैष्णव साहब श्री जगन्नाथ दास महाराज की जय। जय श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जी भगोपाल भट्टदास षट गोस्वामी प्रभु की जय। नमाचार्य श्रीदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से गो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत दाता शिव गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपिनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। श्री गौरांगी बेंगलोर ईश्वर भगवान की जय। श्री मायापुर धाम की जय। श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। गंगमई की जय। यमुना माई की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। तुलसी देवी की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। इस्कॉन वर्तमान गुरुवंत की जय। समाविद भक्त की जय। गौर प्रेमानंद हरि की जय। All glories to the assembly. All glories to the assembly. All glories to the assembly. All gurus to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All gurus to Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Krishna. Welcome to Friday morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today we are discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 10, text number 1. Maitreya Uvacha Prajapatir Duhitanam Kishumarasya Vai Dhruvaha Upaye Me Brahmim Nama Tatsutau Kalpavatsarau Maitreya Uvacha Prajapatir Duhitanam Kishumarasya Vai Dhruvaha Upaye Me Brahmim Nama Tatsutau Kalpavatsarau Maitreya Uvacha Prajapatir Duhitaram Kishumarasya Vai Dhruvaha Upaye Me Brahmim Nama Tatsutau Kalpa Vatsarau. Translation Prabhupada ki jai. The great sage Maitreya said, my dear Vidura, thereafter Dhruva Maharaj married the daughter of Prajapati Shishumara, whose name was Brahmi, and two sons named Kalpa and Vatsara were born of her. It appears that Dhruva Maharaj married after being installed on the throne of his father and after the departure of his father to the forest for self-realization. It is very important to note in this connection that since Maharaj Uttanapada was greatly affectionate towards his son, and since it is the duty of a father to get his sons and daughters married as quickly as possible, why did he not get his son married before he left home? The answer is that Maharaj Uttanapada was a Rajarishi, saintly king. Although he was busy in his political affairs and duties of government management, he was very anxious for self-realization. Therefore, as soon as his son Dhruva Maharaj was quite worthy to take charge of the government, he took this opportunity to leave home, just like his son, who without fear left home for self-realization, even at the age of 5 years. These are rare instances from which we can see that the importance of spiritual realization is above all other important work. Maharaja Uttanapada knew very well that to get his son Dhruva Maharaj married was not so important that it should take preference to his going away to the forest for self-realization. Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopishtam Stapitam Era Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamekam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Vidapadakkamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagar Jatam Sagana Raghunathanditam Tam Sajiva Satvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpade Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostude Taptakancha Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishubhanushte Devi Pranamami Haripriya Panchakalpatarubhyasya Vasnubhya Vichapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Moham Karote Vachalam Pankam Lagvedi Grim Yakkapada Maham Bande Shitram Tarnam Paramadama Shri Chaitanya Mishwar. Hare Krishna. So we start a new chapter today called Dhruva Maharaj's fight with the Yakshas. So in this first sloka, Maitreya tells Vidura that Dhruva Maharaj married the daughter of Prajapati Shishumara, and from him he got two sons. So in the purport Srila Prabhupada mentions as to how Uttanapada left for forest for self-realization even before getting his son married. So Uttanapada was a great Raja Rishi. Raja Rishi means they were saintly kings. Raja is a king and Rishi is a saint. So they were not just kings, but they were saintly kings who were great devotees of the Lord. So there was a practice in the yesteryears that once when somebody crosses 50 years or even the half of their lifetime, or even sometimes before, by the time the children get trained and groomed, the practice was they would get married. The father would get their sons and daughters married, and then he would go to the forest for self-realization, because particularly in the case of kings, they would have led a very passionate life being a king. Here in this case, we see that Uttanapada left to the forest for self-realization. He was very busy in his political affairs and all those things, but still he was very anxious as soon as he saw that Dhruva Maharaj was capable of taking care of the kingdom. Now, irrespective of whatever asrama is, the system was that as per the Varnasrama system, the boys had to be trained in taking care of the family as well as their uh, kingdom as a profession. Be is a Brahmana or Kshatriya or a Vaishya, so forth. So even today, this system is followed because the family is dependent on the next generation. As the parents get older, the new generation take over the family and then their respective professions. So there are two things, important factors in this sloka today. One is self-realization, the other is marriage. Uttanapada, being a saintly king, he thought that for me, self-realization is very important more than Dhruva Maharaj's marriage. These are not normal instances, but these are rare instances. So they kings understood the importance of marriage, and at the right time, after getting the children married, they would leave the home to the forest. Otherwise, there was a very great danger of being attached to the family. So as soon as Dhruva Maharaj was quite worthy to take charge of the government, King Uttanapada took this opportunity to leave home uh, without any fear, just as Dhruva Maharaj himself left home at the age of 5 for self-realization. So we'll understand two things. One is marriage, something about marriage. Marriage is a very important samskara. Krishna has established himself religious principles for everyone to follow. So there are many dharmas. A king has got a dharma, Stri has got a dharma, Purusha has got a dharma. But the focal point is that Krishna is pleased when one surrenders uh, to the Lord and follows this dharma. So Krishna himself establishes these religious principles as it is mentioned Srimad Bhagavatam 6th canto itself, Dharmam tu Shakshat Bhagavat Pranitham. The Lord has established these religious principles when He made the creation. He has also established these principles to follow. So there are many, many duties that everybody has got. Husband might have a duty to work or to do his business. Wife will have a duty to uh, cook and take care of children, things like that. Of course, as time has changed, people have changed their people's perceptions in terms of their duties have changed. The duty remains the same. We'll understand why the duty remains the same. So, by following these regulative principles, one is prevented from leading a sinful life and one follows a regulated life. So, it is said that one religion, uh, or rather human life, without following the religious principles, is just like an animal life because otherwise there is no difference between mankind and animals. They also eat, mate, sleep, and defend, and human also do the same thing. But one thing that animals don't understand is religion. But man has been given the intelligence that there is something called religion. So in the as per the system that was prevailing, as per the Vedic system, a woman is protected by her father first, then by her husband, and later by her son. And women are also called the weaker sex, and that is why they need to be protected. But in many respects, it is also mentioned that a woman is stronger, and in many aspects, a man is stronger. So, what happens is that when there is a combined system of marriage, and when the man and woman jointly understand each other and work together, serve together the Lord, then the family becomes successful and they lead a happy life. Nevertheless, it is always a saying that there always has to be one head of a family. In fact, not only as a family aspect, in general, where there earlier in ruling of the kingdom also, there was one king, but then as the times changed, the democracy and so many things happened, and many um, divisions of this ruling has happened. So there is a chaos in the society today because due to lack of a capable leader. And the same thing happens in the family also. There is supposed to be one head of a family, that is the man. And then there are different duties for both the man and the woman. The woman is supposed to be chaste to her husband, and man has also to be supposed to be also loyal to his wife. Now, a wife has also to serve her husband very faithfully. So she must have a good relationship not only with her husband but also with both the with her in-laws as well. And she should always look at the in-laws as much as her own parents. And in turn, the in-laws also should look at her as their own daughter. So marriage was done with all these aspects, with Krishna in the center, God in the center. And at the same time, it is said that man should never try to exploit a woman. It said that woman is a weaker sex, so she should not be exploited. So man has to provide a woman and also protect her and then guide her, because it is said that a man is uh, stronger rationally in terms of his taking intelligent decisions, but a woman is stronger emotionally. So when both combine together and use their respective strengths, and then when they beget a child, then the child becomes very intelligent. Uh, uh, there's a saying, common saying in English also, that behind every successful man there is a woman. So both have to understand each other and get along, and then that's the purpose of marriage. And women's duty is also to keep her family very close and close knit and affectionate. And then one of the important things is that a woman cooks at home and offers it to the Lord as bhoga, and then she takes the prasad, and then when that is on prasad is honored, that's a sort of a purification. So, but then what happens is the man goes around and works, and but finally it is the woman who keeps the money with her and spends. She has got a control of the money. So, if we see even in Shastras, there is a quote, I think Srimad Bhagavatam, that one should not become a king, a father, mother, or a teacher unless and until one can deliver their dependents from the cycle of birth and death. So, parents have a very big responsibility to ensure that the children become devotees of the Lord. So, in the Esther years, the marriages were fixed at a very early age. Of course, in different ashramas, there were different these things. But generally, for Kshatriyas, there were different challenges. For example, Arjuna himself had to pierce an arrow or a fish to win over Draupadi. So, like that in Kshatriyas, these challenges were there. But otherwise, the principle was that at a very early age, the marriages were conducted when both the boy and the girls were, in fact, it's said that 5 to 6 years the girl used to get married, and maybe the boy with a gap of sometimes even 6 years or 10 years. So the reason is that uh, when they get married at a very early age, they build natural affection between themselves instead of developing a lusty relationship. So there was a good understanding between both the boy and the girl, and marriages were very, very successful. And that was one reason that marriages were made earlier. Uh, the parents had a responsibility to see their children get married at an early age, and then as they groom and grow and groom, then the parents would leave for vanaprastha or sannyasa or to the forest, whatever it is. So one example is that Srila Prabhupada also, it is said that he left home when one of his daughters was still unmarried. I think she remained unmarried also. So in this case also Uttanapada left his home for a higher purpose, that is for self-realization. One example that is given in the Shastras is about his Sridhara Swami, who actually wrote the commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam for us. So it is said that during his days, uh, his wife left her body after delivering a child. So Sridhara Swami was in a very confused situation as to what he should do and how he should take care of the child. But then all of a sudden he saw that a baby lizard was born, and at that time a small insect happened to come and fall in the tongue of this baby lizard, and the baby lizard ate that insect. So at that time, he thought that a lizard doesn't have a big intelligence, and that too, this is a baby lizard. And the Lord made arrangements for food for the baby lizard. Then, if that is the case, why not his son? So he left his son and went to the forest. But I mean, this is not something that anybody can do today. But the point is that Siddhara Swami also realized that if he stays as a householder, then he will be bound. But circumstances made him to leave, and then he wrote the commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam. This is one example that is given. So marriage itself is a very samskara. For example, the samskaras are meant for the purifications of human beings. There are many samskaras, of which marriage is also one of the samskaras. And in this samskara also there is a yajna that is performed, which most of you might have seen. And in that yajna, Lord Vishnu is invited. And so when the marriage is performed in front of the Lord, the marriage is said to be, and the couple take oath and they live as per the Shastra, to please jointly, husband and wife jointly serve Krishna. Then the family becomes very happy, because when the Lord is pleased, yajna means Lord. So when the Lord is pleased, then they also live a peaceful life. And at the end of uh, when the parents live in their house and they leave their bodies, the son is supposed to, in fact, putra means one who delivers his forefathers. The son offers oblations to his forefathers, by which the forefathers get delivered from hellish planets. So basically, marriage is not a ritual, but it is a purificatory ceremony, and it's a spiritual activity, not just a ritual like the way people think so. So both husband had and wife had their duties to perform. And particularly in the case of husband, he had to maintain the family by his profession. And the wife dharma was to be chaste to her husband and then cook at home and take care of children. Now, what happens is that when this is done, the children have that affection to their parents. At least the mother is there. But nowadays, what has happened is that with the women also started working, both husband and wife going out to work, and then the question of offering food to the Lord does not arise, because generally nobody has got time to take care of their children itself, and the children are put into some nursery and so many other things are there, and children are taken care of by them than by their own parents. So with the result, the child also loses the motherly affection which was prevailing earlier. And secondly, also after all these things, when in fact nobody had, there was no system of the boy meeting the girl at the early years. They were, because they were married at an early age by the parents. And even when it was fixed, they used to see all the astrological charts and all those things. And when there was proper compatibility, then the marriage used to take place. But the situation has changed in Kali Yuga, and it has gone topsy-turvy. And we see that marriages literally don't last for a very long time. And as we all know that we are very good in following the Western style of living, and they literally marriages don't exist there. So they marry if they divorce. Or the current new system, that is living system. Without marriage, they live with each other, and sometimes they beget child also. Very unfortunate. So when the girl was married to at a very early age, she did not discriminate between her own parents and her in-laws. And the girl was responsible for uniting two families, and this was uh, a very great. She had her own important role in uniting the two families. And also, when we see that in different respects, many times the boys' side they might give some token of appreciation to the girl's side, which was known as dowry, and that was just as a token to uh, so that their daughter is taken care of. Not that the daughter's side didn't have money, but it's as a token of appreciation. But then what has happened is, as time has passed, people have followed this dowry system and have started demanding, which was not the system that was prevailing before. So that is why marriage has become a business now than anything else. And they live for some time together, and there is a tendency for both man and woman to part ways because they don't follow the religious principles these days. And also, marriage was an occasion to receive blessings from all the seniors and elders in the family, which was very effective those days. So nowadays, marriage is more looked at as a social activity. So in Hindi also it is said that marriage it was called Kanyadan because the father would give her daughter to the boy as charity. That means the boy's father also accepts that charity in the form of the girl from the girl's father. So this is how technically this marriage used to be. And it is said that the girl coming to a boy's house is first like Lakshmi Devi herself coming. And both husband and wife are supposed to live like Lakshmi and Narayana. So Srila Prabhupada also he saw that the society was degrading and he wanted this Vivaha Samskara to be established in ISKCON. And it is said that in the early days, he also arranged many marriages and he clearly defined what marriage was. And still, there are many who are living as husband and wife and they are living a happy life. But Srila Prabhupada very clearly defined that boy and girl does not have to have a free meeting like it happens these days, even before marriage. And another quote from Srila Prabhupada is that a chaste wife of a family is even greater than the wife of a president or a prime minister of a country because a president's wife will have some honor as long as he is in the king, in the position of the president. But as soon he loses that position, which happens in democracy and all those things, then the wife also loses her honor. But a chaste wife is remembered throughout by the community as a whole. And it is said that even the demigods respect a chaste wife because they also are a witness to the marriage when the yajna is performed. Because when Vishnu is invoked in the yajna, the demigods also appear, so they are there as a witness. And the child is trained at a very young age to be a devotee of the Lord. So, the system was that the elders in the house would give stories from Ramayana, Mahabharata, and all those things. This is how the children were trained at home also, and also the boys were sent to Gurukul. And Gurukul, they were giving good instructions and training the boys, by which the boy also has got a lot of respect for the elders. And one more important point was that those days cow was being kept by every householder, and the cows are very among the animals. Cow is supposed to be very very good and charitable also, because cow gives milk. So when one associates with animals like cows, one becomes more religious because the cows are very very dear to the Lord. And there are some examples in Srimad Bhagavatam. For example, uh, Marriage of Kardamuni and Devahuti is one example where Kardamuni was a very saintly person, whereas Devahuti was the daughter of Swayambhu Manu, and she was a prince, whereas Kardamuni was a saintly person. He didn't have anything, but the marriage was arranged by Lord Brahma between the two of them, and from the successful marriage of theirs was born Lord Kapila, who was also an empowered incarnation of the Lord himself. So this is like this. That if we see in Srimad Bhagavatam, there are a lot of successful examples of successful marriages. And a good wife is known as a Dharma Patni because a wife is accepted in a religious ceremony. That's why she is called Dharma Patni. That means she is accepted in the terms of religious principles. And when children are born of such Dharma Patnis or a woman married according to religious principles, they inherit the property of the father. But children born of a woman who is not properly married do not inherit the father's property, and they become nuisance to the society. As I mentioned before in the previous class, there was a king, Anga. His wife, he married a wife who was the daughter of death. And finally, what happened was that they had a son called King Vena, who was a cruel, very cruel boy right from his childhood. And it created so much of a disturbance that his father left very early to the forest for self-realization. So this is how it is very, very important that marriage is a successful affair. But what happens is these days that a woman starts working and she starts mingling with other men in her work environment and so forth. So she does not retain her chastity or her honesty to her husband. So, but if one gets a chaste wife and accepts a religious marriage ritual, then it becomes a great situation, a good compatible situation, which is what is called grihasthasrama, or a household dedicated to spiritual cultivation. So marriage itself is samskara by which both of them are purified and they both together advance in spiritual life. The next important point is that, generally the principle was that once they pass the grihasthasrama, the men would go to the forest for self-realization. And there are many examples in Srimad Bhagavatam also. Now, why they go to the forest is that it is accepted that forest is the mode of goodness. Of course, the forests of current days need not be, but then forest life is any day better than a city life because self-realization means no disturbances, whereas city is full of disturbances. That's why they used to go to the forest for self-realization. And some of the examples are like Ambrish Maharaj, which we all know mentioned in the 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. He was very, very great king and he ruled his kingdom very well. And we know the pastimes he had with Dhruva Maharaj, Dhruva Samuni. And then at the right time, he retired from active family life and he took the order of Vanaprastha and went to the forest to concentrate his mind on the Supreme Lord. Then another good example is about Rishabdev. Rishabdev also, he had 100 sons. At the right time, he felt that the sons were grown up. He handed over the kingdom to Bharat Maharaj and he left to the forest. Similarly, his son Bharat Maharaj himself, he ruled his kingdom and at the right time he felt that he should leave to the forest for self-realization and he left at a very young age. There is one more example given in the exam. This is about a son of Manu called Kavi. He was the youngest son of Manu, and it is said that he gave up his kingdom even before attaining full youth. That means even before becoming a youth, he left his kingdom. And along with his friends, he went to the forest always thinking of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is, and he attained perfection. So this is what is called self-realization. And those days, the great kings, they knew the importance of self-realization. Otherwise, they'll be attached to the family. because they were all devotees of the Lord, they knew the importance of practicing self-realization. In fact, there is a quote in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam where Narad Muni instructs Yudhishthira Maharaj. He says, the human form of body is meant for understanding the self and the supreme self, the supreme personality of Godhead, both of whom are transcendently situated. If both of them can be understood when one is purified by advanced knowledge, for what reason and for whom does a foolish, greedy person maintain the body for sense gratification? That means he emphasizes that both are transcendental, that is, both our soul and the super soul are transcendently situated. And if that can be understood by proper advanced knowledge, then why should a foolish person work unnecessarily, becoming greedy for maintaining the body for sense gratification? So this is what the self-realization practice was during the Esther years. Nowadays, what happens is that people are attached to their family, kith and kin, which is also an illusion. If you see, the families of the Esther years lived a very happy life because they lived a religious life. But nowadays, because marriage is also considered a ritual, it is not done in the proper way. The priests also come and take some money and then go away. The as time passes, both the husband and wife lose their interest on the opposite sex because marriage was based on lusty desires, and they don't have interest within the family. And this also affects the progeny, which is also why we see that in many cases the children are lost and they don't know what is the life is all about. But human life is meant for understanding who we are, who is God, and what is our relationship with God. One good example is about Kattavanga Maharaj in the 2nd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. We see that Kattavanga Maharaj was a very great warrior, great king. So he was invited by the demigods in a battle against the demons. So he went and he fought the battle. He won the battle also. And then the demigods wanted to give him some benediction. So they asked him, what benediction would he like to have? Immediately he said, he asked, what is the duration of my life? And they said, 1 moment. Immediately he said, let me go back to earth because I have my deities, and he worshipped the deities and left the body. He could have asked to stay in heaven, which is always very opulent, and lived a longer life and so forth. But he realized, being a great king, being a self-realized soul, he knew that his duty was to prepare for the next life. So he came back to earth, worshipped his deity, and then he left his body. So this is what his self-realization is about. But these days, people are really lazy and they are focused only on material advancement, and they have forgotten what is self-realization. Many examples in Srimad Bhagavatam where we see Narad Muni at a very early age. His mother was bitten by a snake, and at that time he had no one else but to by the association, his association with the Bhakti Vedantas, what he had heard from them. He heard about the Supreme Lord and he took shelter of the Supreme Lord, and at a very young age he became a saintly person called Narad Muni. So that is one example. Another example is Parikshit Maharaj himself. Parikshit Maharaj was cursed to die by a snake within 7 days. So Parikshit Maharaj was such a great king, and he was a great devotee of the Lord also. He could have asked the Lord to be forgiven for that curse which was given to him. But then when he consulted all the saintly persons in his kingdom, he came to a conclusion that it was right for him to go to the forest and leave his body. And that is how he came across Sukadeva Goswami, and the opportunity became for us to get Srimad Bhagavatam, which we are discussing today. So Parikshit Maharaj also left, and he had a very opulent kingdom and a great family. So at a very early age, he left at that age, he left because he knew perfection of life was to remember Krishna. Similar example is there in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Kardamuni in fact wanted to leave home even before having a child. But then his wife Devahuti said, "How can you leave me alone without having someone who is dependent?" Then they got 9 daughters, and after that, still she said that I don't have someone because the girls will get married and go away. But then I need somebody like a son. So that also Kardamuni accepted that demand, and finally Lord Kapila was born. So um, uh, this is how a real successful marriage was, and the tradition was that at the right time they would go to the forest for self-realization. Um, there is also a quote from the fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Prithu Maharaj was informed by Lord Vishnu itself that the four Kumaras would come and see him. So when the Kumaras met Prithu Maharaj says that there is no stronger obstruction to one's self-interest than thinking other subject matters to be more pleasing than one's own self-realization. That means Prithu Maharaj emphasized that there is no other stronger obstruction than the one's self-interest over one's own self-interest. That means that the Kumaras were telling Prithu Maharaj that it is more self-realization is more important than other things, than even thinking of oneself as their body. Generally, people are attached to their body and kith and kin, so that is how lose their interest in self-realization. Similarly, in the fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Narad Muni instructs in Pachina Bharisat. He says that if a living entity is developed in Krishna consciousness and is merciful to others, and if his spiritual knowledge of self-realization is perfect, he will immediately attain liberation from the bondage of material existence. That means if one takes up the Krishna consciousness very seriously, devotional life, then he attains perfection of self-realization. So in this case, we see that Dhruva Maharaj was not married, but his father left the kingdom because King Uttarapada thought that his own son Dhruva left his home at a very young age at the age of 5 and went to the forest for self-realization. So he thought that, of course, these are rare instances which Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport. So he thought that let me go and practice self-realization instead of waiting for Dhruva Maharaj to get married. So he left even before Dhruva got married, and later Dhruva got married after his father left the kingdom, and he had his own 2 sons. So this is the sum and substance of today's sloka and purport. So if any of you have any questions or comments, they can ask me. So if there are no questions or comments, can I take the class as closed? Thank you all very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.